This is Gemara Metziah Daf Pei Bees, and we're holding in the bottom of Pei Aleph Amid Bees, 4 lines into the wide lines as we quote the Mishnah. Helveu ala mashkin as a din of Ishaimer Sachar. Begins the Gemara Lema Mas Nisan Deloiker Rav Eliezer. Let's suggest the Mishnah is not like Rav Eliezer, the Tanya, as we learned in a Braisa. If someone lends to his friend the money, and that person gives him a mashkin, a security collateral, and he loses it, the lender. Yishava, he makes a shvua, v'yitol ma'isav, and he takes his money. He makes a shvua that he was not negligent, then he gets the money back. Meaning, whenever the guy pays back his halva. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Akiva says Rabbi Akiva, the borrower can say, you didn't want to lend me anything except with the mashkin. Avad mashkin, avad ma'isecha. You lost the mashkin, you lose your money. That's how Rabbi Akiva holds, and therefore, if he does not return the mashkin, the borrower is off scot-free. Aval, however, what happened, says Rabbi Akiva, if he lent $1,000 in a shtar, and then the borrower gives a mashkin, in such a scenario, in that case, since it was a halva bishtar, it was written in a shtar, so in such a scenario, there's really no reason for the mashkin. So in this case, if the malva demands a mashkin, he's making the entire halva dependent upon that mashkin. And therefore, if the mashkin is lost, the lender loses his money. So suggests the Gemara, Rav Eliezer seems to say that the malva is a shomer chinam, because Rav Eliezer was of the opinion, he was the first din in the Braisa. The Rav Eliezer said that if the malva loses it, he doesn't lose anything. Yishav aviyitol. Seemingly the malva is a shomer chinam. Says the Gemara, no. And therefore, it's not like the Mishnah, because the Mishnah says the malva is a shomer sachar. Says the Gemara, afilu temer Rav Eliezer. We can even explain the Mishnah according to Rav Eliezer. V'loi kasha. Why not? Kan shemashkena b'shas alvasai. Kan shemashkena shaloi b'shas alvasai. Rav Eliezer in the Mishnah is talking about there's a mashkin shaloi b'shas alvasai. The malva tried to collect the money. He wasn't able to. So what happened was the lova said, I'll give you a mashkin. So he took a mashkin. Since the mashkin was not at the time of the halva, but rather it was to extend the halva, therefore Rav Eliezer holds that in such a scenario, it will make the malva into a shomer sachar. Normally, Rav Eliezer holds your shomer china. But if you took the money at a later date, if you took the collateral at a later date, that's when Rav Eliezer says you become a shomer sachar. Asks the Gemara, 1 second. The Mishnah and the Bryce, as we turn over to Beis Amin Alveyu Ala Mashkin Gatani. The words were exactly the same, asks the Gemara, both in the Mishnah and in the Brisa. So how can we possibly explain that one was talking about the mashkin was taken at the time of the halva, and one was talking that the mashkin was taken at a later time? If both the Mishnah, if both the Mishnah and the Brisa use the same words, we have all the reason to assume that they are the same cases. Ella, so rather suggests the Gemara, like Kasha, a different way of explaining how the Mishnah could as well fit with the Shita of Rav Eliezer. Kan shelvahu mois, kan shelvahu peiros. In the Mishnah that we said he's a shomer sachar is when he lent him peiros. The Brisa, in which Rav Eliezer said he's a shomer chinam, yishav aviyitol, is when he gives over money. Now the difference is that when peiros are given over, then when peiros are given over, what happens over time? What happens over time, the peiros are going to rot. And therefore, the the one who lent the money is gaining. Why is he gaining? Because if I have 100 apples, those 100 apples aren't going to last me for that long. So if I lend them to you, you'll use them and you're going to pay me back my apples. So in a month, I'm going to get fresh apples. And therefore, there's a gain had by the malva, and that's why we're considering him a shomer sachar. Whereas, if you give cash, there's no gain for you having my money. I mean, you gain. Therefore, it's a shomer chinam. Ask the Gemara. V'amediktani seifa. V'amediktani seifa. And the fact that the seifa says, Rav Yehuda Imer. What did the end of the Mishnah teach us? Halveu mai shomer chinam halveu peiros. Shomer sachar. Says Rav Yehuda, if money is lent, he's a shomer chinam. If peiros are lent, he's a shomer sachar michlal. So what does the Tanakama hold? Tanakama lo yishanila. See, clearly the Tanakama doesn't make such a chilik. We're answering that the difference in the price of the Mishnah is whether it's peiros or whether it's money. But clearly, it's not true. Because in the Brisa, no such distinction is made. And therefore, at the end of the Mishnah, and therefore the Tanakama clearly is not only talking about peiros when he becomes a shomer sachar, but even when it comes to money. Says the Gemara of Lo Shanile. So rather, explains the Gemara, you're right. Kula Rav Yehudi, we have to understand that entire Mishnah is Rav Yehuda v'chazur mechzar v'chi gatani. Helvei wala mashkin, 8 lines down. Shomer sachar b'medvarim amurim shelveu peiros. Avalaveu mois. Shomer chinam. Rav Yehuda imer elveu mois. Shomer chinam. Elveu peiros. Shomer sachar. So says the Gemara, it's all Rav Yehuda. But second, yachi kamalal masnisa like Rav Akiva. Because then it comes out the Mishnah like Rav Akiva. Says the Gemara, you're right. El machavarta, we must answer masnisan. Like Rav Eliezer must be the Mishnah. It's not like Rav Eliezer. Now, the obvious kasha is, why are we happier to say it's not like Rav Eliezer versus saying it's not like Rav Akiva? So the Pashim shot is, we know Stam Mishnah is like Rameir, and Rameir's Rebbe was Rabbi Akiva. And therefore, we always prefer to make Mishnayos fit with Rabbi Akiva, with Rameir, and we rather say it's not like, and even if we have to say, it's not like Rebbe Eliezer. It says the Gemara, Lema, so says the Gemara, what exactly is this machlokes between Rebbe Eliezer, between Rabbi Akiva? It suggests the Gemara, Lema b'dol shavi mashkin sher zuzi. Let's say the machlokes is, we're halfway down, Pei Beis Amud Aleph, first one line is mashkoin. Let's say that the machlokes is when the mashkoin is not equal to the value of the loan, ubedishmuel kamifliki. And they're arguing about the din of Shmuel. This should sound familiar. We had this a few days ago. That the din changes if the mashkoin is worth the entirety of the loan or not. Damer Shmuel says, Shmuel, I mandos vi alfa zuzi lechavrei. So lent $1,000 to its friend. Vanach leikata de maglam. Iluvayu. And he put the handle of a stick, of a shovel, of a sickle, as the mashkin. Ovid kata de magla. He lost this handle of the alpha zuzi. He lost 1,000 zuz. So says the Gemara, this din of Shmuel is going to fit with Rabbi Akiva, excuse me, who says that Ovid Hamashkin, Ovid Hamais, whereas Rabbi Eliezer, who says the money is not lost, is not like this din of Shmuel. Says the Gemara, 1 second. If it wasn't worth, if the handle of the sickle is not worth 1,000 zuz, then what? The Kuliyam Meless of the Shmuel. Then no one holds of Shmuel. No one holds you lose the money. But over here, in our case, the case was the mashkin is worth the value of the halva. And it's a different machlokes, the din of Rav Yitzchak. The Amar Rav Yitzchak teaches Rav Yitzchak. Minayin the Baal Chayv shekoine mashkin. How do we know that the Baal Chayv, one who lends the money, is kind of the mashkin? Says Rav Yitzchak shenemar We learn it from the pasuk that says "L'chati tzedakah," and to which we consider that tzedakah. Meinai kainem mashkain. But if the lender does not actually own the mashkain, tzedakah minalei, what's the tzedakah? But rather, from here, famously, Rav Yitzchak teaches Mekan the Balchayv Shekoinem Mashkoin. Accordingly, Rav Yitzchak holds the Balchayv as a kinyan on the Mashkoin, and therefore, if the Mashkoin is lost, the lender is the one that's going to lose the money. Rabbi Akiva is going to fit with this din, of course, of Rav Yitzchak, as he held Avad Mashkin Avad Ma'isaf. Whereas Rav Eliezer seemingly disagrees. Says the Gemara, but Tizbra, really? Hey, Mardam Rav Yitzchak, when Rav Yitzchak says, is only when the mashkin was taken, not at the time of the alva. When the mashkin was taken later on, when the malva tried to collect, and the Levit didn't have the money to pay, and in deference, the malva took the mashkin. That's when Rav Yitzchak says, "L'chati tzedakah." Aval, however, Rav Yitzchak never said this thing. So Ella says the Gemara, attempt number 3 to figure out what's the machlokes. Mashkinai b'shas alvasai kili amisl Rav Yitzchak. V'hacha b'mashkinai b'shas alvasai u'b'shomer aveda kamifliki. So the mashkin was taken at the time of the alva. So what's the machlokes, Rav Eliezer versus Rabbi Akiva? Whether when the mashkin is lost, whether you lose the money or not, says the Gemara, the machlokes is b'shomer aveda. De'itmar, we learned. Shomer aveda, 4 lines from the bottom. What is the status of someone who finds a lost object and therefore he has to watch it? Rabbi Amar kishaymechinam Rabbi Yosef Amar kishomer sachar. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, who says he's like a shomer sachar, is like Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Eliezer, who says he's like a shomer chinam, is like Rabbah. So the Gemara wants to pin the machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva on the machlokes Rabbah and Rabbi Yosef as to the status of a shomer aveda, and similarly will be one who's watching the mashkain. Says the Gemara, based on what we just said, that Rabbi Yosef, who says the shomer sachar, is only going to be Rabbi Akiva. But says the Gemara, maybe not. Lema, let us suggest 2 lines from the bottom, the Rabbi Yosef Tanohi. Maybe this din of Rabbi Yosef, says the Gemara, is this din of Rabbi Yosef Achlikis Tanoim, like we just said, that Rav Elazar and Rabbi Akiva are arguing as to whether they hold it to Shemer Sachar like Rabbi Akiva or not. If everyone can agree with Rabbi Yosef by Shemer Aveda, you have a din of a Shemer Sachar. As we turn over to Beis Amid Beis, what's the machlokes? B'malvet tzarich lemashkain kamifligi. The machlokes Rav Elazar and Akiva is in a case where the malva needs and would like to utilize the mashkain. Mar Savar, says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva holds even in such a scenario, mitzvah ka'avid. Lemaisa, the malva is doing a mitzvah by lending the money, even though he gets the usage of the mashkin, shall value, because he lent him. Vavish Kishaymir Sachar. Omar Savar, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Elazar holds, Lav mitzvah kavit shall anasai miskavin, he's doing it just to get the mashkin. Vahave Shemer Chinam, therefore he's a Shemer Chinam. So 4 attempts, and finally Gemara concludes that the machlokes is whether in a case where the malva needs the mashkin, he uses the mashkin, as Top Rashi says, and then he detracts from that which he used. That's the machlokes, whether that gives him a din of a shemer sachar, says Rabbi Akiva, or whether he remains a shemer chinam, says Rav Eliezer. Abashal Eimer Moiser Adam Motor Adam Laschem Mashken Jalani Leos Beiches Vahoilech Loi. 5 lines down into the 6th line says Abashal, one who lends to a poor person with a mashkin is allowed to use the mashkin, and he's doing the poor guy a favor because then he'll subtract from the alva that he has to pay back. Amar Rav Chanan Barami Amar Shmuel Halacha Kabashal. Vav Abashal Lo Yamar, says the Gemara B'Mara. Pasal ve'kardoim. Says the Gemara says only buy certain gardening utensils. Why? Because they're expensive to rent and their depreciation is minimal. But other items in which their depreciation would maybe be equal to the value of the renting, we would not necessarily go with Abashal because you wouldn't be doing the ani any favors if his item is being diminished. And the Gemara continues with a Mishnah halfway down, Pei Beis Amid Beis. Ha-mavir chavis mimakim lemakim. Excuse me, if someone is moving a chavis, a barrel, from one place to the next, v'shavra and bakes, bein shemer sachar, bein shemer china, bein shemer sachar, yishava, the halacha is, he swears he wasn't negligent, and he's bought. Rav Eliezer Aimer says that yishava, says Rav Eliezer, I heard both the shemer china and the shemer sachar swear. However, Rav Eliezer says, I wonder if this is the correct din that each one can indeed just swear and not have to pay. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, Hamavir chavis mimagam ne'magam v'shavra ben shemer china ben shemer sachar yishava, he swears in his pater divrei Rabbi Meir, like our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Imer shaymer chinam yishava noisei sachar yishalem. Rav Eliezer Imer zev the yishava tamiani yicholim zev zel yishava. So says the Gemara, three opinions, and it comes out Lemeimer desavar Rameir. Rameir holds niska lafsheu. Comes out according to Rameir that one who trips, breaks the barrel, is not considered pshia. Vatanya, but as the Braisa, nishra kadev lo silkai. If the pitcher broke and he did not remove the pieces, nafla gamaloi v'lo hamidai, or nafla gamloi, or if the camel fell v'lo hamidai and he did not stand it up, Rabbi Meir mechayiv bezekon. Chachamim ma'imrim padu yadno chayiv d'mishvayim. So says the Gemara, we have a case where a pitcher breaks and he left the shards on the floor. What is the halacha? Or if one's camel falls and you leave him on the floor. Meir says if the shards or if one's camel causes damage, a chayiv. Chachamim say no, you're patim d'ini adam v'chayiv v'dinei shamayim. And in this case, v'kaimelon debenitzka b'shei apeligi. That what's the machlekes Rameir and the Chachamim? The Rameir holds it's a pshia, therefore you're chayiv. Chacham holds not, therefore you're patim d'ini adam. But we just said that Rameir holds niskal is not a pshia. Amar Rav Elazar Tavra Mishashana Zula Shana Zu, they're precise. Therefore, they don't necessarily have to concur one with the other. Says the Gemara. So we brought down three opinions. The first was Rabbi Meir was Yishva. The second was Rabbi Yehuda Shemer Chinam Yishva and Isisach Yishalim. And the third was Rabbi Elazar Merzev Yishava. And he was bothered if whether that's actually true. Asks the Gemara. Va'asa Rav Yehuda lemeimar, on the fifth wide line, Rav Yehuda comes to say Shemer Chinam Yishava and Isisach Yishalim. Rav Yehuda says Shemer Chinam swears Isisach has to pay. Hai kidina v'hai kidina. Why? Both the Shemer Chinam and Shemer Zachar go according to their dinim. And then that's Rav Yehuda's din. That Shemer Chinam obviously is more potter, so you just swear that Shemer Zachar has to pay. And then V'asar Rav Eliezer lemeimar in Gemara Kirameir. It's true that the minog, the tradition is like Rameir. I don't understand it. How does it make any sense? I understand. What's a Shemer Zachar swearing? The lacha is a Shemer Zachar has to pay even if he was negligent. So what's the shvuah of the Shemer Zachar? Asked Rabbi Eliezer. Va'afilu Shemer Chinam. Rabbi Eliezer is even bothered, even a Shemer Chinam nami. I understand he doesn't have to pay if he slumbled on a slope surface. Can you make such a shvuah if it's a flat ground that you're not b'sheya? We turn over to Pei Gimel Amud Aleph. If we don't have the page, let's just read 3 more lines. Va'afilu makam nami. Rabbi Eliezer is bothered. There's no way to prove his case with the Eidim. Neisir Ivani Potter says Rav Eliezer, why is he allowed to swear? The Tanya, he said, without Eidim, then there's a Shavuah. But if there's Eidim, says Rav Eliezer, Yavirayv Yipater, and these are all the reasons Rav Eliezer is very bothered of the halacha of Yishava. I'll pick it up from Rav Chia Barabba on Pei Gimel Amud Aleph B'siyata Dishmaya.